Um, Shall we start? Hey people, can you hear me? All good? You can hear me and see me, right? Yeah. Okay. So, some news so we are going to start the sort of the paper discussion, paper sessions of the class, right? So, this is our usual theory class, rapid theory coverage class. So, in addition to the start term, is it laggy? Is there lag? No, right?
Recording in progress.
Is there a lag? You can't. It's not clear. Okay, hold on. So, I have already sent you PDF, and right. So during the weekend, we are answering it's 27 or 28 tips, and about three distributions. Okay. Is there a lag still? Hmm? So that discussion will be held online, right? Discussion will be held online this Tuesday. Okay. So it will be held on this Tuesday, and so since this is our first paper, I won't be marking it, right? I won't be marking it, but from the next paper onwards, I'll be giving you marks, right? I'll be marking and sort of giving you mark papers. But since this is our first one, it's happening free now, so I won't be marking it. So it's up to you to read the paper and join the discussion. So that's the first thing. And yeah, so only you can join, right? You can't. It's from entire grade 12 syllabus. So from the class you got, right? You want to leave that toast? You got you keep. On the behind you have the vitamins. Yeah. Otherwise, people throw like leaflets. People tend to throw them away, right? So now, since you have vitamins on the back of it, at least and you will study, right? Okay. Other people, can you hear me and see me clearly? All good, right? Okay. So, where did we stop last week in our rapid theory? Where did we stop? Did we finish? Hmm. Okay. Yeah. What we kind of talked about. Okay. Right. Yeah. There's a essay homework to write to check also. That's at the end of the class, right? We check essays at the end. Okay. Right. So we have to go ahead from that point, right? So my plan is to sort of finish female reproduction as much as possible today, but there will be, I think, a bit of pregnancy left for next week. But let's try to cover a lot of content today itself, right? So we finished hormonal regulation, no? Hormonal regulation. Any doubts that you want to clarify from hormonal regulation? Anything? Yeah. What are the main hormones that are involved in regulation of the female reproductive system? Who is at the top controlling everything? Just a quick summary. Who is at the very top controlling everything? Hypothalamus. There, who is his deputy? Anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary hormones go and act on ovary. ovary එකේ යටතේ ඉන්නේ කවුද? Who is the servant? I mean, let's say who is obeying orders from the ovary? You have the uterus, particularly uterine endometrium. Endometrium, no? So this is what we call as the hierarchy, no? Hierarchy of organs, interconnected by and coordinated by what? Hormones, right? Interconnected and coordinated by hormones. Okay. So what are the common hormones? I mean, sort of hormones we have to know about. GnRH initiates everything. Anterior pituitary, yes, produces two hormones, LH and FSH. Ovary produces what? Estradiol and progesterone. So those are the main hormones and main, let's say, organs involved in the entire process, right? So we talked about how they vary throughout the cycle, right? There are two cycles, the ovarian cycle and uterine cycle, right? We studied how ovarian cycle coordinates the uterine cycle, no? Ovarian cycle coordinates the uterine cycle. That we have established. So we also discuss what's going to happen. I mean, so in a normal cycle that we're talking about, in the ovarian or the uterine, there is no pregnancy. There is no pregnancy. That's why at the end of the cycle, what happens? Menstrual flow happens. Menstrual flow happens only because why? There is no pregnancy. So now we have to talk today, what are the changes you can observe if there is the very special situation of a pregnancy happen, right? If by chance, right? If by chance a pregnancy happen, what would be the difference with this normal cycle, right? So we were in page number 60, no? Page number 60 of the resource. So at the end of the hormonal regulation of the female reproductive system, we talked about the menopause, right? So that is the end of the female reproductive age, right? There will be no ovarian, no uterine cycles, release of eggs, and bleeding, menstrual bleeding, everything will stop, right? So menopause, what is the definition of menopause? Highlight: cessation of ovulation and menstruation in a woman. Cessation of ovulation and menstruation in a woman, that is menstruation. Sorry, menopause. Okay, they can ask you those. Usually menopause takes place between ages 45 and 55. Ages 45 and 55, that is sort of the average age, right? Menopause can start earlier than that, or it can sort of menstruation can happen close to age 60 sometimes, right? During this time, the ovarian supply of oocytes run out and the estrogen production by the ovary decreases. There's a bit of a doubt. Why? What does it say? The ovarian supply of oocytes run out. Is it possible? At birth, how many primary oocytes does both ovaries have? About 1 to 2 million. 1 to 2 million primary oocytes are found in the ovaries of a girl. So during the lifetime, we made the calculation. No? During the lifetime, we made the calculation about only about 500, right? Maximum, let's say 600, even only about 500 out of 2 million in both will be released. So how can they say they run out of oocytes? That is not a right concept, right? But what exactly happens is, so your ovary is there. So your ovary is like this. The ovary ovulates in response to what hormone? What is the hormone that is triggering development of follicles? FSH. Follicles containing primary oocyte become secondary oocyte under the influence of the hormone FSH, released by anterior pituitary. what happens when the woman gets close to menopause is this ovary will not be responding to FSH. That it says here, no? No, it doesn't say. What actually happens is the ovary does not respond to FSH. Oh, yeah. Ovaries become less responsive to the hormones FSH and LH. So FSH stimulates the what? Follicular growth and maturation. LH stimulates what? LH stimulates ovulation. So both of those hormones will stop having an effect on the ovary. That is the main reason. So because of that, the ovary is unresponsive. Therefore, there is no ovulation. Without any ovulation, there is no uterine changes, so there won't be any menstruation or anything. That is the reason, right? So with age, the ovaries become less responsive. When ovaries become less responsive, their production of estradiol and progesterone reduces. When their production of estradiol and progesterone reduces, the uterine endometrium does not undergo any changes. So therefore, there won't be any menstruation. Menstruation will be stopped. Right? So this is what happens. So, but anyway, if they ask in the paper what happens in menopause, you have to say first thing, whatever in the resource you have to write. Ovarian supply of oocytes run out and the estrogen production by the ovary decreases. Those are the two things you have to write happening at menopause. Right? Those are the two things you have to write as happening at menopause. Okay. And the third thing you can also write, ovaries become less responsive to the hormones FSH and H. That is actually the main reason, right? Number one, the ovaries become less responsive, therefore estrogen and progesterone decreases. That's what happens, right? So menopause, that's the story. Okay. Then we can move on to human development or from pregnancy onwards, right? Any questions? Questions there? No. Okay. So, human development, what do we have to know? Where does this development of a new human or like origin of life happens? Where exactly? Where exactly? With the, what is the incident that is sort of the very big, like the start of this process? What is the first incident? So we have our uterus like this, right? It's sort of narrow at here and sort of, what am I drawing? This is the oviduct, right? Like this. There's an ovary here, and this is sort of the uterus, right? And that's the oviduct, right? So this is, here you have the cervix, right? Here you have the cervix, and this is the endometrium, like this, right? This is the endometrium. Sperms come through the vagina, through the cervix, into the uterus, and let's imagine, so this is the ovary, so ovary is usually sort of connected by this sort of a ligament, ovarian ligament. Can you remember? Ovarian ligament connected. So there will be an egg released. Is it actually an egg? What are we releasing during ovulation? We are releasing a secondary oocyte. No, we are releasing a secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte with meiosis stopped at where? Meiosis 2. Yes, meiosis 2 के मुकद्द phase है. Phase. The phase of meiosis 2 has started, but post. So there will be a secondary oocyte released. We have a secondary oocyte එකක් තියෙනවා. Usually there's an area in the fallopian tube called the ampulla, right? Ampulla is sort of kind of very close to the uterus. You don't need that region. Ampulla in a region negedi. The sperm and the egg combine. Here there's the egg. It is prophase. Metaphase, no? It's metaphase. Metaphase of meiosis 2. The sperm and the egg, so secondary oocyte will combine in the ovida, resulting in what? Fertilization. This is the start of life, right? In the ampulla region of the ovida. Just remember, for you, the oviduct is fine, right? In the fallopian tube, fertilization takes place. Okay. Then that starts a series of things that is going to end up with a childbirth, hopefully, if the pregnancy goes all well, right? Okay. So, human development, page number 60, right? Growth of a new human being starts when an ovum is fertilized by a sperm, usually in the ovida. During the development of the individual within the mother's uterus, a sequence of events occurs from fertilization to birth, which normally ends in 38 weeks or roughly 9 months. Right? Actually, 38 is, so 38 to 40 is the usual duration of pregnancy. Right? Anything below, anything earlier than this, we call it what? Preterm. Preterm. Right? So this is the normal duration of pregnancy, 38 to about 40 weeks. Right? Normal human pregnancy period, or you can call it gestation period, right? Gestation. Then we can divide this pregnancy, or you can say gestation, into two portions, right? As the as the embryonic and fetal. Week 0 to week 8 is embryonic. Okay, first 8 weeks of human development is called the embryonic period. Then 8 weeks onwards, it's the fetal. Right? Take this down. You can divide the gestation period, which is about 38 to 40 weeks, into two periods, as the embryonic period and the fetal period. Only this part of it. So usually by the 8th week, why we consider week 8 as a milestone, is by 8 weeks, the baby's heartbeat is usually, you can detect, right? Like the baby's primitive heart, we call it as the heart fields. Heart field has been developed by 8 weeks. So it's kind of a milestone, right? It's an important thing. From that point onwards, we consider it's not an embryo anymore. Embryo it's not like a full human again, right? After 8 weeks, we sort of consider the baby to be like humanoid, right? It can become a full complete human after 8 weeks. So we consider it like a fetus. We call it a fetus, right? We call it a fetus. Then what's going to happen? So let's talk a little bit about fertilization. During for fertilization to happen, ovulation and sperm entry has to happen at the same time, no? Not at the same time, at least within 2 days of ovulation, we say, right? Isarhata 2 days and pasta 2 days, we have to say before ovulation and after ovulation, either we have to have sperm, right? The female reproductive system can store sperm for a little bit, about 72 hours, store right? So at least before 2 days, a duration, right? Ovulation if the ovulation is in the center, there's like a 4-day period. If the sperm entered during 4 days, usually there's a chance of getting pregnant, right? So if sperms came 2 days before, the sperms can be stored and theirs can be fertilized. If the sperms came after, sometimes the secondary oocyte is still traveling in the oviduct and still fertilization can happen, right? So a very narrow period of, let's say, fertile, right? The female is fertile in this gap. Okay. So a secondary oocyte release at metaphase 2 years. Metaphase 2 is enter the oviduct. During fertilization, a sperm enters the secondary oocyte, penetrating the epithelial cells surrounding the oocyte. Right? These are supportive cells, they are for the protection of the oocyte, right? How is the sperm penetrating those cells? By acrosome action. Always in acrosome, right? In the head of the sperm, there is an acrosome. With the help of the acrosome, the sperm can penetrate these outer layers. Then after that, we have another layer in the oocyte, a glycoprotein layer. What do you call that glycoprotein layer? What do you call that glycoprotein layer of the oocyte? We call it the zona pellucida. Like this, there are supportive cells, no? In the oocyte, there are supportive cells like this. And there's a layer that is called what? Zona pellucida. The sperm has to penetrate this as well, right? Otherwise, it cannot get into the maternal haploid nucleus, right? So the sperm has to drill through this, right? So to do that, you need acrosome action. Otherwise, there won't be a successful fertilization. There are techniques. Samahara sperms do not have the acrosome action very nicely. Some sperms do not have the acrosome action happening properly. So for such instances, what we can do is we can inject the sperm. We can put a needle into the secondary oocyte and we can inject the sperm into, right? Just the sperm head. We can inject through a needle into the egg. Okay, I'll show you a video. Like you can hold the egg from one side and use through a needle. You can inject the sperm head into here. That is part of our I told you, tube baby in vitro fertilization, IVF. That is done in IVF. I'll show you a video, right? So if the sperm can't penetrate through these layers, it can be injected like that, right? Next. So sperm penetrated through the supportive epithelial layers, then through the glycoprotein layer, plasma membrane and the surrounding cells. So the glycoprotein layer is present between. So in inner, it's the secondary oocyte plasma membrane, and outside we have the supportive cells. Then what is going to happen once the sperm is inside? Metaphase 2 වල නතර වෙලා හිටියේ නේද? Meiosis 2 was started but was forced at metaphase 2. That metaphase will complete. Completion of metaphase is going to result in what? Secondary oocyte once it completes meiosis 2, it's going to divide into a ovum and second polar body. Yes. Second polar body එකට මොකද වෙන්නේ? Second polar body is going to, it's going to degenerate, no? So meiosis 2 is going to be complete. This is our required product. Okay. What is the trigger for meiosis 2 to be completed? Sperm penetrating. Without a sperm penetrating, it is not going to go beyond this stage, right? Without a sperm penetrating, secondary oocyte level එකෙන් ඉස්සරහට යන්නේ නැහැ. Got it? Then subsequently, the two haploid pronuclei of the mature ovum and the sperm fuse to produce a diploid single cell referred to as the zygote. You know about these things, right? Zygote එකක් හැදෙනවා. Then there's a definition. Fusion of haploid nuclei of the sperm and ovum is called fertilization. Highlight. Fusion of the haploid nuclei of the sperm and the ovum is called fertilization. Okay. Fertilization. Fertilization takes place in the upper reaches of the oviduct within 12 to 24 hours after ovulation. Right? So, you know, for fertilization to happen, we need several things. Sperm has to be deposited, right? There has to be intercourse and ejaculation and sperm avilla තියෙන්න. Sperm has to travel through all these problems, right? Sperm ඇත්තට මෙතර දුර deliver කරන්නේ. What is the maximum length the sperms are going to be deposited? Maximum here near the cervix, right? Cervix එකෙන් එහාට anyway sperms can't come. Sperms can't be delivered during ejaculation, maximum up to here. So sperms have to swim through the cervix, then have to decide, right? මෙහෙට යනවා. So mostly 50-50 divide වෙලා they are going to go in the two oviducts. But what's the problem? The egg is coming in only one. So that also has to happen. Sperm has to go in the right oviduct. I mean the right means that the ovulation happening oviduct, right? Right left නෙවෙයි, right? The oviduct where the ovulation or the secondary oocyte is coming, right? So all those things complete now. After about 12 to 24 hours after ovulation, there can be fertilization in the upper reaches. Can you see? Upper reaches of the oviduct. Okay. So that is fertilization. Any questions? First part of the, let's say, human development, right? Human development. What is the first thing that has to happen? Nicely fertilized when. Clear? Second one, we need to talk about what's going to happen after fertilization to the zygote. Zygote is going to go through rapid cell divisions. Right? They are included in the tube. Right? I have put some diagrams. Right? I have given some diagrams about how the sperm penetrates as well. Anyone who haven't got the tube? Online people? You have the tube, right? In this diagram, can you see how the sperm penetrates the external layers? Right? So those external supportive layers are called corona radiata. No, don't need those names, right? They are called corona radiata. And so can you see? Then it will go through the zona pellucida, and you can see the secondary oocyte in meiosis as well, right? Can you see, like chromosome separate venagamang thing? Can you see meiosis is happening but post, right? Then where were we? We are in so in the this last diagram, can you see? The sperm has penetrated in the diagram B. right? Diagram B, can you see? The sperm has penetrated and you can see the female pronucleus is there and the male pronucleus is there. And finally, in diagram D, what is going to happen? Yes, the male and pronuclei have combined. And F වෙනකොට මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? The zygote has become two cells. No? The zygote has divided into two. Right? That is the start of a series of rapid cell divisions. Right? Rapid cell divisions. I'll show you these diagrams in the projector as well. Right? So that is the start. What happened? Secondary oocyte came. Secondary oocyte is like this, surrounded by supportive cells. Sperm penetrates. That penetration is going to trigger secondary oocyte to divide, completing meiosis 2 into the ovum and the second polar body. Second polar body it is going to degenerate. Sperm and the ovum unite to form the zygote. Zygote will start rapidly dividing by what cell division? Mitosis, right? Then meiosis katandar okkom ivarai, right? Now it's only mitosis, right? Mitosis matam until there's a complete human in like a complete baby. Mitosis is going to happen throughout these gestation days. Okay. What do you mean? The first polar body එකත් ඒක ඇතුලේ තියෙනවා. First and second polar bodies are both there. Right? That is the oocyte immediately after ovulation. So එතකොට තාම first meiosis 1 is still happening. Meiosis 1 is still happening according to this diagram. Right? Secondary oocyte is released. Right? Sorry? Polar bodies, they haven't degenerated. Ne? Polar bodies ටික ඉතුරු කරලා තියෙනවා ඒක. Right? So this diagram is from like an embryology book, right? So I think it's more accurate, right? ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ හැටියට නම් it degenerates immediately. But sometimes according the polar bodies, they remain. What's the only problem with them? They don't have much cytoplasm, right? Cytoplasm එකක් නැහැ. So they are useless, right? There's no any function by the polar bodies, but they sometimes can persist. Right? Even if your resources they degenerate, right? They can still sometimes survive within the oocyte, right? So where are we? We started, right? So we are in page 60, right? Second set of events: cleavage of the zygote, blastocyst formation, and implantation. Okay. So let's read a little bit and I'll show you some diagrams. Okay. About 24 hours after fertilization, a series of rapid mitotic cell divisions called cleavage takes place. Right? Cleavage. Cleavage of zygote begins in the oviduct, right? Where did fertilization take? Fertilization takes place in the oviduct, right? So the cleavage begins as the zygote. So if we think it's fertilization took place here, cleavage starts as soon as it's sort of a zygote, right? Within 24 hours, it's going to start. So uterus එකට එන්නත් කලින්ම cleavage has started, right? As it moves forward towards the uterus by ciliary and peristaltic movements. කාගේ ciliary and peristaltic movements? Whose ciliary and peristaltic? Oviduct. Oviduct, inside the oviduct there is cilia, and also it's a smooth muscle. It's composed of smooth muscle, so it can contract like this, so that the zygote, now it's not a zygote, it's like a ball of cells, right? It's a ball of cells rapidly dividing, comes to the uterus. Okay. Right. I think before moving on, I'll show you some diagrams. So we are going to arrive at the second stage, that is called the morula. Morula. How many cells does a morula have? Zygote has only one cell. How many cells does a morula have? Hmm? How many cells does morula have? So mitosis occurs rapidly even before reaching the uterus. I think in the morula stage we have about less than 8. Let's see. Okay. You don't have the tooth. Who doesn't have the tooth? Hold on. You are in the group, right? Anyone who doesn't have the tooth? Okay, I just sent it to the Zoom chat, right? But get it download. But if you're not in the group, let me know. I'll add you to the group. Okay, it's been sent to the Zoom chat. Okay, it's a big file. Okay, right. After the morula, what is the stage? I mean, morula is sort of a very intermediate one that only mentioned in your research, right? It's not very clear. Hold on. Yeah. Online people, can you see the screen? It's a bit small, no? Why isn't it? Yeah, 80% better. Right. So, where are we? I'll sit down so I can. Right. So, this diagram I have included in the tube, right? So, where were we? This is the penetration of the secondary oocyte by the sperm, right? So, after that, the meiosis 2 will be completed. We have a male pronucleus that was released from the sperm head, no? Okay. So, then this is fertilization complete, right? Diagram D shows the beginning of the first mitosis, right? Very first mitosis. So this is very first mitosis, anaphase happening. F is what? Two cell stage, right? Mitosis has started. This is what is this process called? Cleavage. Cleavage has started, right? So this is, can you see? This is a real diagram of, diagram A. Can you see the two pronuclei? Right? Can you see the two pronuclei, male and female? Right? So that is a fertilized ovum, and this is a two cell stage. right? So cleavage has started. When does cleavage start? 24 hours after fertilization. 2-cell stage. Okay. All right. Yeah. Can you see? This is the cleavage, right? 2-cell stage is reached approximately 30 hours but in your resource it starts around 24 hours after fertilization. So you can see the 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, and morula, right? About morula is, I think, yeah, 12 to 16 cells, right? This cell division is very rapid, no? දෙකෙන් හතරක් වෙනවා, හතරෙන් අටක් වෙනවා, අටෙන් 16ක් වෙනවා, ටක් 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 ගාලා it divides, right? But the thing is, still the cells are inside the zona pellucida. Can you see? Secondary ovum එකේ this glycoprotein layer is still there, no? Right? So it's still, the cells are getting smaller, but the cell number is increasing. Because why? They are still inside the secondary oocyte එකේ zona pellucida එක ඇතුලේ ඉන්නේ, right? So the next stage, yes, can you see? These are not human, this is mouse, right? 8th cell stage of a mouse embryo, right? Mouse embryo electron micrograph, right? Next stage, what we have to talk about is this, right? That is called as the blastocyst stage, right? So by this point, when we have reached the blastocyst stage, the ball of cells would have reached the uterus, right? So the ball of cells would have reached the uterus at this point. Then onwards, it's going to organize itself. It was just a ball of cells. Next, it's going to organize itself into a sort of a structure like this, that is called the what? Blastocyst. Blastocyst usually has about 107 cells, right? It says about, I'm not going to say the days even in these diagrams because the resource book days can be different, right? So this is called the blastocyst. It looks like this. There's a sort of a cavity here. There's an empty cavity here, and cells are sort of in one, like a cone ring. In one corner of the structure, you have the cells, right? So this is how the real blastocysts look like. Next step is this blastocyst is going to attach to the uterus. Uterine endothelium, it's going to attach. That process is called what? Implantation, right? We are planting our embryo in the endometrium. So the embryo is like a seed. Attack wage. අපි එක plant කරනවා අපේ soil එකේ. What is our soil? Endometrium. Okay. So these are further. This is the blastocyst, like colored. There are different types of cells in the blastocyst. You don't need to know this. All right. So this is sort of a quick diagram of how ovulation happens, right? Here there has been fertilization. Now you have the 2-cell, right? 8-cell homomavilla. This is the implantation, right? Clear? These things you know how the endometrium changes, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you, right? So the pregnancy, I mean, after implantation, cells change like this, right? The endometrium will start to provide nourishment to the implanted embryo, right? Implanted embryo grow, it becomes more complicated, right? More and more cell division happens, more and more complicated. So, right, can you see? Like this, it's going to grow, right? This is a 2-month-old embryo, right? Yeah. So those are the things I want to show you, right? So many, we undergo so many weird stages before actually starting to even look like a human, right? humanoid appearance එක එන්න කලින් we undergo so many developmental stages. Okay, let's come back to the resource. Where are we? Right. So cleavage, blastocyst formation and implantation. Right. Highlight about 24 hours after fertilization. Highlight 24 hours. Series of rapid mitotic divisions called cleavage. Highlight the word cleavage. Then cleavage of the zygote begins in the oviduct. Highlight. Cleavage of the zygote begins in the oviduct. Cleavage continues, forming a solid ball of cells, morula. Highlight. Then, by the time embryo reaches the uterus. Then, what is the time taken for the embryo to reach the uterus? 3 to 4 days. Okay, highlight that also, 3 to 4 days. Then morula floats within the uterine cavity and gets nutrition by endometrial secretions. Endometrial glands, can you remember? What is the phase of the uterine cycle that you have endometrial glands? Anyone online knows? Endometrial glands තියෙන්නේ මොන phase of uterine cycle? Endometrial glands, they secrete what? Endometrial milk කියලා I told you. So it's a secretion. So it's a secretory phase. It's in the secretory phase. No? Endometrial glands are developed in the secretory phase. Why are we having endometrial glands? So to support the early embryo. On early embryo කැවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. What is the early embryo now? Morula. Still morula. Then about 5 days, highlight, about 5 days after fertilization, large fluid-filled cavities form surrounding the ball of cells. With the formation of this cavity, this developmental stage is called the blastocyst. Right. I think in the next page, I have given you a blastocyst, right? Can you see? It has a cavity, the same diagram I just showed you, right? It has a cavity. That stage is called blastocyst. Label this diagram. Label this diagram as blastocyst. Put a topic on it like blastocyst, and we are going to do some labeling as well. Label කරලා තියෙනවා, but ටිකක් ලොකුවට you can label, right? Online people, your tute, I think most of you have got your tutes, right, delivered. If you have entered your address to the website, you must have got your tute delivered, okay? So blastocyst. Further rearrangement of the cells in the blastocyst result in two distinct structures, the inner cell mass and the trophoblast. So blastocyst has two parts. Inner cell mass and the trophoblast. Can you see in the diagram I have shown you label inner cell mass කියලා තියෙනව නේද? Right? Can you see inner cell mass is also called as embryoblast. You don't need to know that name. But it's easier to remember because why? This inner cell mass will actually later become what? The actual embryo. Right? The actual embryo will originate, sort of arise from The embryoblast or the inner cell mass. Okay. Trophoblast is the outer layer of cells. It eventually develops into the placenta. Have you heard of the placenta? That is sort of like the connection between the baby and the mother. Right? Placenta is the connection between the baby and the mother. So when you're a baby, you have seen like umbilical cord, budding in an umbilical cord. That umbilical cord, if you think of it as a wire cord, right, coming from your coming from the baby. So where is the plug base in the mother? In the mother's uterus, if the baby is lying like this, right? So the baby is like this, right? So from the baby's umbilicus, you get the umbilical cord. Where is this umbilical cord getting plugged to? This is the uterus, right? There is a structure called the placenta. Placenta is the plug base. So the baby gets all the nutrients, oxygen, and everything from the placenta through the umbilical cord. Everything is given. So this placenta gets mother's blood, right? It's filled with mother's blood, right? Mother's blood taking. So the baby gets all the nutrients through the placenta. So this placenta has two parts, right? Placenta has two parts. එක පැත්තක් බබාට අයිති part එකකුත් තියෙනවා. So like the plug top, right? Plug base එකට how we have two parts, no? There's a plug base and the plug top, right? Plug top එක කියලා කියන්නේ අපි plug කරන කෑල්ලනේ. So that plug top is like the babies, right? So the placenta also has two parts as the maternal portion and fetal. This trophoblast gives rise to the fetal portion. You can write this down, right? Blastocyst. Blastocyst originates how many days after? අවස් කීයකට පස්සේද blastocyst එක එන්නේ? How many days after fertilization? 5. Blastocyst 5 days. You have two parts in the blastocyst, inner cell mass and the trophoblast, right? Fetal portion of placenta originates from the trophoblast. It's delivered. It's part of childbirth. බබා හම්බ වෙනකොට placenta එකක් delivered. Childbirth has three parts. dilation of the cervix කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. So the cervix has to open up. That is the first part of childbirth or begin of parturition කියලා. Then second is the delivery of the baby. Third is the delivery of the placenta. It comes out. It gets detached. From the endometrium, the placenta gets detached. Naturally, it detaches. If it doesn't detach, we actually have to remove it. So, you have to remove it. Because it's dangerous to keep the placenta inside after the baby has been delivered. I'll explain. Okay. Placenta has to be in your midwife, right? The midwife who is delivering, she has a checklist. She has to check the umbilical cord. Umbilical cord is cut properly. Has it been clamped? Umbilical cut කරන්න බබාල හම්බෙනකොට umbilical cut කරන්න යනවා නේද? ගෙදරින් නෙවෙයි pharmacy එකෙන් අරන් යන්න ඕනේ. You have to take a clip, right? And those things. If the baby cried, right? Those things they have to check. And also they have to check if the placenta was delivered. And she has to check if the placenta is complete. Right? You can deliver with the placenta. They have to. We have done this. The placenta, as it was delivered, she takes it to somewhere somewhere very visible. She is going to examine it, midwife, to see the placenta is complete. Uterus she has to check if the placenta was completely delivered. Right? I'll explain to you why is it so important. She has to make sure the complete placenta has come out. Okay? That's one of the midwife's jobs. Here goes the blastocyst. Right? So this blastocyst, after 7 days, it's going to undergo the next important phase. Right? You can see in this diagram. In the sort of green and blue one here. This diagram. Can you see? There, you can label the diagram. Figure 4.1 label it as implantation. Implantation within brackets, write down 7th day. 7th day. Hapteni dawase thamai implantation වෙන්නේ usually. Seventh day. Okay, come to the resource, page number 61. 7 days after fertilization, blastocyst attaches to the endometrium of the mother's uterus. This is called implantation, right? There's a definition. Attachment of blastocyst to the endometrium of the mother's uterus is called implantation. Then read, as the blastocyst implants, the inner cell mass orients towards the endometrium. Trophoblast grows outwards and invades the endometrium. So, can you see in this diagram? Yes. In the previous diagram also, can you see the green color cells are trophoblast? In the previous diagram as well, I have shown the green color cells are the trophoblast, no? The blue color cells are inner cell mass. Right? So, in the figure 4.1 also, the green color is the trophoblast. Right? This trophoblast is like they are like roots. Right? So, I told you the endometrium is like the soil. So, now the seed is growing. Right? So, the roots, this trophoblast is like roots growing into the endometrium. Right? So, the trophoblast grows and invades the endometrium. This is initiated by enzymes secreted by trophoblast to break down the uterine lining. The trophoblast, this blastocyst is like the endometrium is being sort of dug and sort of drilled and sort of, it's going into the endometrium, deep into the endometrium. Then trophoblasts extend finger-like projections in the endometrium. So that is implantation. You don't need to know about these other things, right? What I need you to highlight is in the second diagram, highlight uterine glands in this diagram. Uterine glands කියන එක highlight කරන්න. Right. So trophoblast has several parts such as syncytial trophoblast, cytotrophoblast, or just highlight trophoblast කියන ඒ ඔක්කොම trophoblast තමයි. Right? That's enough for your level. Okay? Pick the label it as what? Implantation day 7. Okay? Implantation day 7. Right. Then the trophoblast begin to secrete human chorionic gonadotrophin. Highlight. Trophoblast begin to secrete HCG. HCG. Which has an action similar to LH. Oh. What was the action of LH? What was the action of LH? So if the ovary is like this, there was a follicle here, right? That follicle ruptured and released the oocyte. So that ruptured follicle will become what? A glandular structure, no? What is it called? Corpus luteum. What was the signal for this ruptured follicle to become corpus luteum? What was the signal for this ruptured follicle left behind after ovulation to become corpus luteum? LH. It was a luteinizing hormone, right? So this follicle was converted to corpus luteum under the influence of LH hormone, right? And this corpus luteum is maintained by LH. Right? You can remember, right? Corpus luteum is maintained by LH. Okay? So they say HCG has similar action to LH. Analog, right? Analogous, that means having similar action. So if there was no pregnancy, what is the usual thing that is happening? Corpus luteum secretes estradiol and progesterone. Estradiol and progesterone goes and inhibits hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. So if there was no pregnancy, what would happen? Estradiol goes and inhibits anterior pituitary. Now LH drops. Then LH was maintaining the corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum degenerates if there is no pregnancy. But now there is pregnancy, right? So this trophoblast is secreting HCG. So HCG has an action similar to LH. Therefore, corpus luteum will be saved. Corpus luteum will not be degenerated if there is a pregnancy. Okay. So what is going to happen? Corpus luteum is continue to secrete estradiol and progesterone. Estradiol and progesterone is it going to do what? Maintain endometrial lining. Maintain the endometrial lining. So what would happen if there was menstruation? Endometrial lining කඩාගෙන ගියොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? The implanted embryo එකත් අපේ ගහගෙන යනවා. the implanted embryo will also get get lost, because I mean it might be happening, right, in pregnant, in women. It could be it's happening very frequent, right? There can be implanted embryos that are just getting, let's say, washed out with menstruation because their HCG was not enough, right? Because these are Chuti cells, right? These are small cells. You cannot differentiate. වෙනම identify කරන්න බෑ if in the period blood if there was a small embryo, right? You cannot identify. But if it was successful, this HCG is going to rescue the corpus luteum. If corpus luteum is there, estradiol and progesterone levels remain high, so the endometrium will not break down. So the pregnancy will be maintained. Got it? Highlight: HCG hormone rescues the corpus luteum from degeneration and sustains its secretion of progesterone and estrogen, which maintain the uterine lining, preventing menstruation. Okay, next paragraph. After implantation, 3 germ layers are formed in the developing embryo at the end of the gastrulation stage. Okay, I will show you this. Extraembryonic membranes begin to appear around the embryo. Placenta is formed by the cells of the trophoblast and adjacent endometrial tissues. So placenta, we know, fetal portion came from trophoblast. Maternal portion comes from part of the endometrium. Okay, part of the endometrium, inner lining of the uterus, becomes the maternal side. අම්මගේ පැත්ත. plug base එක වෙන්නේ අම්මගේ side එකේ endometrium එකේ some tissues, right? Okay. Then we have to talk about fetal membranes. Fetal membranes, put a star mark, those are short nodes, likely short nodes, fetal membranes. Okay. Those are very, likely short node topics, fetal membranes. Okay. So I'll show you some diagrams. I have given you the diagram, yeah. I have given you a diagram, but I'll explain it. There are 4 main types of, let's say, there are 4 main extra, you can say fetal membranes. There are 4 main fetal membranes, right? That they have included in their syllabus. What are they? Chorion, amnion, yolk sac, and allantois. Right? Chorion, amnion, yolk sac, and allantois. Right? So these fetal membranes are very interesting because they perform most of the protective functions, right? So we were here, right? I'll just show you. We were here. This was the last diagram I showed you. Can you see this green color is the trophoblast? Trophoblast is extending into the endometrium, right? Sorry, it's extending into the endometrium. So this is sort of the next stage, right? We have here the first sort of development of the yolk sac. Can you see? This green color thing is the, what we say as the beginning of the yolk sac. Sorry? No, the yellow color. Yellow. This is this cavity is what will become the actual yolk sac. So it has a membrane, okay? So these green things are your trophoblast. Green part is trophoblast. They will become the placenta, right? Ready, right? Those are all beginnings of these extraembryonic or fetal membranes, right? We may take a chutak skip kalla. These are sort of we have to jump to a yes, just for a bit of knowledge. This is how the placenta cross section looks like. Placenta cross section looks like this, right? Placenta. This is the umbilical cord, right? මෙහෙම යටට umbilical cord එක තියෙනවා, right? Downwards, we have the umbilical cord, right? Oh no, wait. This is not umbilical cord level yet, right? This is still trophoblast, neva trophoblast, right? Around them, sort of around the trophoblast, mother's blood vessels are going to sort of get surrounded by trophoblast, right? Mother blood vessels, they're like are getting electricity, right? Current එකට ගහලා වගේ, right? These trophoblast cells are surrounding mother's blood vessels, right? So they are extracting nutrients. This is the trophoblast, right? I need to show you this embryonic membrane. So these are all developmental stages, right? දවස් 25ක් විතර වෙන, right? 25 days old embryo. This is what it looks like. Yeah, මාළුවෙක් වගේ, right? So yeah, embryonic. These are defects, right? They are on there. These again, you can see the yolk sac has been developed, but I think the diagram in your tute is the best diagram. The diagram I have included, right? Where is it? Yeah, all right. So this is just a diagram. I have included this in the tute as well. Diagram එක තියෙනවා නේද? Initially ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ ඔළුව ගොඩක් ලොකුයි, right? So the cranial capacity, I mean the cranial size, it's not that the head is not getting smaller, okay? You can take ඔළුව පොඩි වෙනව නෙවෙයි, the rest of the body is growing, right? It's not that the head is getting smaller, right? But it's proportional, right? At birth, this is the proportion, right? At about 3 months, this is the proportion, right? These are all, this is 11 weeks. 11 weeks means not about 3 months. 3 months. This is about also 3 months. You can see it's a human again, human characteristics, right? That's why we say after 8 weeks, we have to feed embryo, right? After 8 weeks, closing to this sort of 12 weeks, it's like a human. It's like a human baby. So that's why we call it a fetus, right? This is what we call as the placenta. Can you see? ඕක ගැලවිලා එනවා. Becomes detached during pregnancy and comes out with the baby. This is 7 months, right? තව මාස 2යි එතකොට වගේ තියෙනවා, right? If this baby was delivered at 7 months, still it can live, right? We can have the baby in incubators, right? Special baby care unit, and we can keep for about 2 more months, and the baby can survive, right? Baby can still survive. Yes. Embryonic membrane. This is the diagram I have included, right? What are the things you can see? You can see the amniotic cavity, right? You can see the amniotic cavity, right? Amniotic cavity is filled with what we call as amniotic fluid, right? Amniotic fluid, have you heard? Amniotic fluid is the same thing here. It's like an abhinigam babaw malwir page. Right? We sort of grow the baby like a fish because the baby is not breathing. Baby is getting all the oxygen, everything from the placenta, from the mother's blood. The baby is getting everything. So the baby is not breathing. So the baby is living in a liquid. That liquid is called what? Amniotic fluid. So about when mothers are sort of very close to delivery, or a water break, what do you call that? I mean, what is actually happening when we say water has broken? Yes, this amniotic cavity. Can you see? It's a membrane. Whether membrane, can you see? That membrane has broken. So this amniotic fluid is coming out. That happens very close to delivery, right? Babaham, when it's very close, that happens. Okay. Yeah. So you can see the yolk sac. It's not very clear, but I think in the tute it's clear. No, you can see there's a yolk. It's not clear in this diagram, right? Chorion you can see, amnion you can see, yolk sac you can see, right? Those membranes you can see, right? So this is the placenta, right? Where the baby gets all the nutrients. Okay. 19 week, right? You can see this is the placenta. Can you see this is the placenta? This is the umbilical cord. You can, yeah, umbilical cord you can see. 23-week fetus, Babek, 23-week old baby, right? Umbilical cord you can see. And this is the placenta. This is how it looks like, the placenta. Right? You can see the umbilical cord and delivered. No? This gets delivered at childbirth. The placenta comes out. I have real photos of placentas, but I don't think you will be able to. I mean, I can't show you. They are very sort of blood soaked, right? Again, you can see the chorionic cavity and the amnion, right? Amnion you can see, right? Allantois also you can see here, right? We'll talk about what other structures they become, right? What the chorion becomes, what the allantois becomes, right? We'll talk about them, right? Yolk sac also you can see, right? This is about twins, right? This is how twins are formed, right? Any questions about the fetal membranes? Let's go to the resource and then let's discuss. Okay. Okay, come to the resource book. Page number 61. 4 new extraembryonic membranes appear after implantation. They are chorion, amnion, yolk sac, and allantois. Highlight chorion, amnion, allantois, and yolk sac. Okay. Then chorion becomes the main embryonic portion of the placenta, which is the structure for the exchange of materials between the fetus and the mother. On Aparadi, I erased that, right? So again, I'll write it. Placenta, actually, let's say mature placenta. Mature placenta actually has two parts: fetal portion the fetal portion in the mature placenta is called the what? Chorion. Is called the chorion. It's called the chorion. This chorion came from what? What became the chorion? Trophoblast. This chorion came from trophoblast. Right? This chorion, trophoblast became the chorion. That's the thing. Right? Trophoblast became the chorion. Nothing much. Trophoblast in the sort of embryonic early, right? Trophoblast was in the early embryonic stage. Right? Now where are we? Where are we? We are now in a fetal stage. Right? We are in the fetus. Now the baby's like weeks product gihilla තියෙන්නේ. So we don't have a trophoblast now, we have a chorion. Okay. So they say the chorion becomes the main embryonic portion of the placenta, which is the structure for exchange of materials between the fetus and the mother. What are the functions of the placenta? They have given. Sorry, not the functions of the placenta, functions of the chorion. Functions? Protects from the immune responses of the mother. Mother's immunity. Baba Ammage antibodies, right? Because why? The baby is a foreign thing. The baby is a foreign thing inside the mother. Why? Why is the baby a foreign thing? 50% of the baby is not from the mother, no? 50% of the baby's cells contain, not 50%, if you take a cell, half of it is foreign to the mother. Why? It came from the father because 50% of the DNA is from the father, 50% of the DNA is from the mother. So immunity thinks this baby is something foreign, right? Something foreign. So unless we protect the baby from the immunity, especially in the early embryonic stages, if you don't protect the baby, the immune system will damage the baby. Right? Immune system will damage the baby. Okay. What is the other function of the chorion? Yeah, trophoblast was producing HCG. When the trophoblast becomes chorion, it does the same function. HCG, right? So this is about the chorion. Chorion in the mature placenta, chorion is the fetal portion of the placenta, right? Then amnion, right? I told you, amnion is the protective membrane surrounding the fetus, creating a fluid-filled cavity which serves as a shock absorber, right? What is that fluid called? Right, in this diagram, in the tube diagram, draw an arrow to the amniotic cavity and write amniotic fluid. In this diagram, right? Can you see the amniotic cavity? Draw an arrow and write filled with amniotic fluid. Filled with amniotic fluid. Okay. Amniotic fluid. What are the functions of the amnion? What are the functions? What are the functions of the amnion? Serves as a shock absorber and prevents desiccation. What is desiccation? Drying out. Baby is kept in a water bag. No? Water bag commonly water bag. So it's a water bag. It's mainly water. It's actually baby's urine. Urine. So that urine and water and the baby defecate toilet into the amniotic fluid. Go and search what are the components of the amniotic fluid. It's mainly urine and water and fecal matter බබාගේ කොණ්ඩේ තියෙනවා skin තියෙනවා ඒක ඔක්කොම waste matter තමයි තියෙන්නේ, right? But it's a good shock absorber and prevents desiccation. Then yolk sac, you can see the yolk sac, right, in the label 2T. It's like a small group of cells that will become the blood cells until the fetal liver takes over. It is also the source of primordial germ cells that migrate to the developing gonads. Highlight that. Now you know, right? අපේ testis, primitive testis and primitive ovaries වලට where did we get the germ cells? What was the source? In spermatogenesis and oogenesis we talked about. What was the source? Yolk sac. Yolk sac එකෙන් තමයි අවිල්ල. Then allantois is a small outer pouching of the yolk sac that serves as an early site for blood formation and associated with the delivery of formation of the urinary bladder. ඇත්තටම allantois කියලා කියන්නේ part of the yolk sac, right? Allantois is part of the yolk sac. Okay. Right. Now I want you to do a bit of self-writing. Write the topic functions of fetal membranes. Pages, right? Functions of fetal membranes. Write down a topic. List, right? First write down chorion. List the functions. Then what is the next? Amnion. Write down the functions. Yolk sac like that. 5 minutes. List the functions of the fetal membranes. There are how many? There's only 4 fetal membranes. So list down the functions of the 4 fetal membranes. After that, we can do a lot of questions. So, yeah, lot of questions now you can do. Okay, done. Fetal membranes. Functions of fetal membrane. Okay. All right. Hmm. Let's do questions after the break, right? Let's have a small break, 10 minutes. Then, yeah, then we can continue with the placenta. And I think we have 3, 4 MCQs that we can do. We'll discuss those after the break. Okay. Let people take a break, 10 minutes or 12 minutes. Okay. Right.